Everybody. It's good to have you join me on this video. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about my philosophy of coaching, or rather, I guess my philosophy in general around humans and where it's informed from. So I fundamentally believe that humans are not broken. I think that ultimately we've simply forgotten who we are. And those first formative years, which sometimes go straight into our 40s, are all about the social conditioning, the parental narratives, school, friends, groups, communities that have informed opinions and perspectives, mindsets and beliefs. And of course, fundamentally, as human beings, we have a need to belong. And so even overhearing a conversation between your mother or your father and somebody outside of the family unit where they passed judgment or opinion on something that you identified with can make you feel like that part of you doesn't belong. And so it becomes buried. And the more we bury it, the deeper it takes roots in this sort of dark space, which Jung calls our shadow. It's that subconscious version of ourselves. So my coaching really isn't about fixing anybody. I don't believe that anybody's a victim. And I think playing into those victim, villain, martyr roles prevents us from being able to see things from multiple perspectives. And when we put ourselves in that particular box, it means we can't shift out of it. We can't move from one box to another because that's who we've identified with, that victim, that part of ourselves that feels victimized. And there's a difference between feeling like a victim, and a feeling is fleeting, or identifying as a victim. And so my coaching really is an invitation into an exploration of all these different aspects of ourselves and a deeper self-remembrance, not a performance for external validation. I believe that when we start to move those filters away, those other people's perceptions of who we are, those labels that have been thrust upon us, rather than ones that we've consciously chosen to adopt, then we're in that place of performance where we seek external validation. And that can often render us in states of brokenness, where we feel like there's something wrong with me because we don't feel like we belong. But when we start to clear through the muddy, murky waters, and we start remembering who we really are underneath all of that conditioning, and we go to the roots. So my work is rooted in helping clients discover that embodied clarity and the sustainable change from the inside out rather than just from the outside in. And after that, it's about integrating all these parts of ourselves. No part of us is wrong or bad. That simply perpetuates the external judgment that we faced for so long, and it caused the problem to begin with. So ultimately, my philosophy is really rooted in that remembering what it feels like to be who you are, and then opening up the door with curiosity to be able to explore all these different aspects of yourself. And sometimes that means walking through that sacred in-between space where we actually have to dissolve our identity so that we can reformulate on the other side, much like the caterpillar. So if you don't know, the caterpillar Well, I'm sure you all know about the caterpillar, the metamorphosis, and it becomes the butterfly, but I don't know how many of you actually understand what happens inside of the cocoon, which is really fascinating. And this was something that was told to me by a colleague of mine probably about 15 years ago, but it set a catalyst in my mind. So the caterpillar spins the cocoon. When the caterpillar is inside of the cocoon, it actually completely dissolves, literally, like it becomes nothing. It's goo. So there's, the DNA, and there's the what's the word? The instruction manual that lies within that about the possibility of what it can come next, whether it's the moth or the butterfly, right? But there is that moment inside of the cocoon where it is dissolved. It's not the caterpillar anymore, and it's not yet a butterfly. And that is really what I think and believe, that it's actually such a sacred moment, because if you interrupt that moment, that there's no going back to the caterpillar. But if you interrupt that moment, you also don't have an opportunity to reform as the butterfly. And so I hold space for that sacredness, that moment of in between where you aren't yet who you want to be, but you're not who you were anymore. And you're kind of in this space where you're like, oh my God, what is going on? I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know. I don't recognize myself. But there's a beauty, as scary as it is to be in that place, there's also a deep beauty and opportunity to become the most beautiful, expansive version of who you could be, want to be, and a moment to fall in love with yourself again. So that's the philosophy of Endeavors and my coaching practice. And I want to meet you in that unfurling. So if you find yourself in that moment right now, even there's an aspect of yourself that you can realize something doesn't feel quite the same anymore. Or you might be right in the middle of the messiness and the chaos, and you're going, oh, I am. Or even if you're just beginning to step outside of that and into that space where you're architecting who you are, but you need support in maintaining the growth and the building of that version of you, then I would love to meet you. I would love to have a conversation to see how I can support you in that process.